It's important that you all should know I make no claims to be something that what my advice is going to be worth anything. Anyone should do their own work. And I also have had history since 1975, a number of major mistakes as a result of which I've had considerable volatility in my results. And so therefore, once again, do your own work. Most of what I do is I buy things like stocks in the hope that they're going to go up. And most of what I do is that. But every once in a while, I get interested on the short side. Now, part of the reason for that is that I do trading in commodities, and I'm just as interested in shorting a commodity that I think is overpriced as I am in buying a commodity that I think is underpriced. And so right now, I would say my most favorite short would have to be strategy. That is to say, the collection from Mr. Saylor, Michael Saylor, of Bitcoin that's worth, I believe, 40 billion dollars, which is relatively close to what the stock strategy is worth. Why do I think it's such a great short? Because the whole thing is a disaster. The If we were in a major bear market for Bitcoin itself, I think Bitcoin peaked 3 months ago, whatever it is, at like 120,000, and now it's down in the 70,000. Down 40% or so from its all-time high, and I think it's going a lot longer. And then on top of that, you have what this guy Saylor has set strategy up. Really, the only value in the company is it's got in inventory of Bitcoin that's currently at 70,000, worth tens of billions of dollars. But how low could Bitcoin go? Well, it's even in the last few years, you've had situations where it's down 75, 80%. And I think that we could see another drop in half from where we are in the value of Bitcoin. Why? Because my feeling has been that the main reason is a lot of value in Bitcoin is because people think of it as a store of value, which is clearly one of the great powers of what we call money, store of value. And that is based, as I understand it, hey, I'm no expert in Bitcoin or crypto, but I think from the beginning, Bitcoin was set up so there's very little dilution. The amount of total Bitcoin that can grow is very tiny, and of course that's a big factor on why gold has been, or silver have been, such stores of value, because they're not susceptible to all the dilution you get from like paper currencies, including our own dollar. So instead, we have a situation where now Bitcoin is up there because people think of it as a store of value. I don't think of it. I've never thought of it primarily as a store of value. I think it's an efficient way of transacting exchanges. If you're a drug dealer, right, and you get somebody to say, "Okay, I'm happy to buy $100,000 worth of your drugs. How do I pay you?" And he says, "Well, why don't you send me Bitcoin, because it's tougher, as we all know, for the government to get involved in it." So that has nothing directly to do with store of value. It has to do with transactions. You have, I think there's still places in like South America, maybe like Venezuela, it used to be Argentina, where a lot of transactions are done via Bitcoin for that purpose. My feeling, though, is the amount of Bitcoins, the number or value of Bitcoins that you need to do the transaction capability is a fraction of what it's worth for. And so therefore, I don't see a reason why, as Bitcoin, as the bear market continues, Bitcoin couldn't go down to 10,000, 5,000, whatever. You'd still have plenty of value to do all the transactions. Of course, they, in part because they happen so fast. And what do you think would be happening to the value of strategy? Currently, I see it's down in the 120 area now. What would the value of strategy if Bitcoin went down to even 20,000, 30,000? Well, I think the answer is you'd make a delightful amount of money being short at the current price. On top of that, the balance sheet is a disaster. Well, the way I learned the value of assets was it's based on, for example, let's say you had assets of a company worth $10 million, and of that 10 million, 8 million was they've got some plant in Lord knows where that they built. So you'd say, okay, great, we've got assets of long-term assets of 8 to 10 million, but a lot of companies will have a little different. They may have assets that they bought, and what it looks like on the balance sheet is you might have $1 million worth of actual value, and the rest you have goodwill. Why? Because if there's actual value of $1 million and they paid $8 million for this asset, then the difference is called goodwill. Guess how much goodwill there is on the strategy balance sheet? The word is humongous. My guess is it's because Mr. Saylor, when he bought the Bitcoin in his own account, paid a tiny price, and so when he transfers it to the balance sheet of strategy, then on the balance sheet it says there's goodwill, which is another way of saying that possibly all the value could go away to nothing, particularly if there's the kind of bear market I think you can see in strategy, because, as I said, it's a myth that it's based on store of value, and it's really based on using transactions, which are another function of money, but it's a very different money. Therefore, I would say, hey, if you're looking for a short, and I know quite a number of the readers have been, in my opinion, deluded into thinking there's some sort of a long-term bullish reason for strategy and for Bitcoin to go up. I think it's over. So therefore, if you want to listen to the occasional speculator, you might think about shorting strategy as a way of understanding we have seen the all-time high in Bitcoin. It will never be over 100,000 again. If you want a copy of my book, The Speculator's Mosaic, just check below, or it can also be bought on Amazon.